Before we start, I would like for you guys to participate in a mental exercise with me. Don't worry, this won't take long, maybe 2 to 3 minutes at most. I would like for you all to take a moment and stop whatever it is you're doing. Stop it. Put everything down. Whether you're mindlessly watching or listening, studying, eating, on the toilet, brushing your teeth, or putting this video on before you go to sleep. Actually, scratch that last part. If you're putting this on to go to sleep, just go sleep. But if you're not, take a moment and stop whatever it is you're doing. I want you guys to close your eyes. Close them. Close your eyes. No, you're not closing your eyes. Close your eyes. Okay. Take deep breaths. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Now, keep your eyes closed, okay? Don't open them. Keep your eyes closed because I want you to imagine something in your head. I'll do it with you, okay? I want you to imagine the most peaceful place possible, okay? The most peaceful environment you could possibly imagine. Now, there's no wrong answers. This is a subjective experiment, okay? This is all about you. This is all about what the most peaceful place is to you. It doesn't have to be a real place. It doesn't have to be a specific place. It doesn't have to be anything that you feel you have to do, okay? Just think of the most peaceful place to you. Just imagine it. Try to be as detailed as you possibly can without ruining the sense of peace that this place gives you, okay? Now, once you've thought of that place, just like I've thought of my place already. Once you've thought of that place, hold that mental image in your head for 10 seconds, okay? Ready? 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And we're done. 2 more things. Note down whatever it is you saw, okay? You can write it down, you can type it out, but take down notes of what you saw in that mental image, okay? Feel free to be as descriptive as you possibly can, okay? It's up to you. Be as descriptive as you want. I invite you guys to pause the video right now and come back when you're done, okay? I'll wait. You're done? Okay, good. Now, if you're interested, you can comment down below what it is you saw, okay? What did you note down? What did you see in your most peaceful place? What did you imagine your most peaceful place was? Personally, I think of my bedroom, specifically in the early hours of the morning from 2 a.m. to 5, because I like how cold it gets and how, I can snuggle in my blankets. And I also associate that time and that place to my free time, because I'm only usually awake at that time if I know that I have time to myself and that I can sleep in the morning. But that's enough about me. I'm sure some of you might be wondering right now what the purpose of that exercise was, especially the people who actually did it. Why? Why did I have you do all of that? The reason is actually very simple. I think people nowadays have this tendency to associate peace with quiet, with calmness, with tranquility. You mention peace to them and they're like, oh, you do meditation? I'm in my Zen state. I am at peace. I have achieved inner peace. I'm enlightened. I've ascended. No, not entirely. And that's not to say I think that way of thinking is wrong. It's not wrong. But it's also not right. Bear with me. I fear I may have lost you. Bear with me. Just like how in last episode, we discussed jealousy and how there's a saying that goes, comparison is the thief of joy. I don't think it's as simple as discussing peace and then saying, oh, you need to have your peace and quiet. Peace and quiet. I don't think it's that simple, because I don't think peace is equivalent to quiet. I think peace doesn't always mean quiet. Let me tell you a story. But before we go into the story, give me a second. Let's have an early water break. That's right. This is about to be a loaded episode, so I'm already taking my water break now. I apologize. Here you go, water break. Come on, guys, let's hydrate. Look at the lips. Luscious. Anyways, where was I? Right. Let me tell you a story, okay? Let me tell you a story about the portrait of peace. Now, disclaimer, I did not write this story. In fact, nobody knows who the author of this story actually is, but most of the sources I've seen have the same plot and the same story beats. Okay, so here it goes. There once was a king who offered a prize to the artist who could paint the best picture of peace. Many artists tried. The king looked at all the pictures. After much deliberation, he was down to the last two. He had to choose between them. One picture was a calm lake. The lake was a perfect mirror for the peaceful mountains that towered around it. Overhead, fluffy white clouds floated in a blue sky. Everyone who saw this picture said that it was the perfect picture of peace. The second picture had mountains too. These mountains were rugged and bare. Above was an angry sky from which rain fell. Lightning flashed. Down the side of the mountain tumbled a foaming waterfall. This did not appear to be a peaceful place at all. But when the king looked closely, he saw that behind the waterfall was a tiny bush growing in the rock. Inside the bush, a mother bird had built her nest. There, in the midst of the rush of angry water, sat the mother bird on her nest. The king chose this picture as the perfect picture of peace. The king chose it because, he explained, peace is not only in a place where there is no noise, trouble, or hard work. Peace is in the midst of things as they are. When there is calm in your heart. That is the real meaning of peace. Now, I think some of you may have already guessed where I'm getting at, but to those of you who haven't, allow me to explain. I don't believe in the idiom, in the saying of peace and quiet, because I don't think peace needs quiet. I think, depending on the person, a quiet environment can bring you peace, okay? Quietness can mean peace, but peace doesn't always mean quiet. As a matter of fact, sometimes peace requires noise. Sometimes peace requires struggle. Sometimes peace requires conflict. Sometimes peace requires violence. I was scrolling through my For You page on TikTok around 2 weeks ago, I think, and I stumbled across this video on TikTok that was pirating another video on YouTube entitled, "You Are a Killer. Dominate Your Mind," by a YouTuber named Orion Taraban. Now, this dude, okay, Orion Taraban, he's a doctor, I think, a doctor of psychology. I'm not sure, if that's true, but for the sake of this video and for consistency, I'll just call him a doctor. This dude, okay, Dr. Orion, Dr. Taraban, he makes a lot of content that I would say is, very red-pilled. For those of you who don't know what that is, it's just me saying that, majority of his videos have a very misogynistic undertone to them. And he also uses AI art in his thumbnails, so keep that in mind. But this one specific video that I watched on TikTok was of him essentially talking about the violence of peace. Now, obviously that sounds very ironic. That's an oxymoron. How can peace be violent? How is it possible that peace is violent? I mean, when I think of peace, I think of the opposite of war. And that's a different discussion. Obviously that is peace. But in the context of the self, of the individual, of the mental state, and the type of peace that Dr. Taraban discusses in his video, sometimes peace does require violence. Orion likens peace to a garden or a park. If you think about it, none of those structures are natural to our environment. These beautiful gatherings of plants, of flowers, and pleasant smells are not natural environments. They were manufactured for the sake of our own enjoyment. Here's a direct quote from his video. I'll read it right now. He says, "If you want a garden, you do not need to understand the weed. You need to eradicate it. You do not need to communicate better with the earth. You need to break it open. You do not need to empathize with the pests. You need to destroy them. You live in a home made of dead trees on land that was cleared of life so you could lay its foundations. Whatever comfort or convenience you enjoy is based on this fact. Man must dominate the world to make a home of it." Now, aside from the very, industrialist undertone of that, the metaphor or the point that he's trying to make is that similar to a garden, there are things in our life that we simply cannot coexist with if we seek peace. Just like how you cannot coexist with the pests, or you cannot coexist with the weeds if you're trying to make a garden, there are things in our life that we cannot coexist with if we seek peace. And I've said this before in previous videos, and I will continue to do so because I believe that this channel is a testament to my past, as well as my continuous struggles in life, in the present, and in the future. I used to really hate myself. And I mean hate. I mean hate. I mean I used to really hate myself to the extent that it affected my life and the lives of the people around me and the lives of the people that I hold dear to my heart. And I look back at the past 4 years of my life and I think of how much time and potential was wasted on this anchor of negativity that was poisoning my outlook in life and transforming me into nothing more than this ball of guilt and hatred and resentment. And, I'm not going to pretend that there aren't still traces of that person in who I am today. I didn't leave behind a version of myself. I didn't kill my past self. I didn't lock him away in my own mind, because I realized that part of actualizing my own peace is forgiving myself for all the things that I did that I found so terrible. Sometimes peace is ripping yourself to shreds and finding contentment in learning how to glue yourself back together, bit by bit. And that, my friends, is a specific type of peace, one of the two types that we're going to discuss today. I like to call this type as active peace. Peace doesn't always mean quiet, because sometimes it means conflict. It means intentional and purposeful conflict with either yourself or your environment. It requires an active change in your lifestyle, your mindset, or your environment. Ephesians 4 verse 22 says, "You were taught with regard to your former way of life to put off your old self, which is being corrupted by its deceitful desires, to be made new in the attitude of your minds, and to put on the new self, created to be like God in true righteousness and holiness." But now you're probably wondering, if that's the first type, if the first type of peace is active, well, what's the second type? Now, I think the second type comes in where the first type falls short. Because active peace can't always be applied in life. The whole premise of active peace is struggle. It is violence. It is conflict. You are struggling against something in the hopes that when you win against it, you establish a sense of peace. Okay? Again, it's intentional and purposeful conflict with either yourself or your environment. How are you supposed to achieve peace? Through struggle, through violence, through conflict, if there's nothing you can struggle against. Like, for example, losing a loved one, or enduring hardships in life that cannot be presently removed. How do you struggle against that? Because it's not necessarily a battle that you can fight it. You don't fight an enemy and suddenly your mom comes back to life. You don't fight your inner demons and then suddenly, I don't know, your brother comes back to life. That's not something you can do. It's a truth. It's a statement. It's a fact that exists, and you can't fight facts. So how do you find peace in that situation? The Greek Stoic philosopher Epictetus argued that all external events are beyond our control, that we should accept whatever happens calmly and dispassionately. However, he held that individuals are responsible for their own actions, which they can examine and control through rigorous self-discipline. Now, I'm reading that excerpt off of Wikipedia, so take that with a grain of salt. The point that I think Epictetus tried to make was that there are certain things that are out of our hands. Now we can't control. We can't control when we have bad days. We can't control when we have terrible days. We can't control when life decides to challenge us, but we can control how to react to those challenges. If we allow ourselves to desire over or worry about things that are presently out of our control, we put ourselves in an unreliable situation, a situation where suffering and a lack of inner peace are guaranteed. Epictetus argues that peace will only come when we stop valuing things that are out of our control, that there is peace in acceptance. Coincidentally, that is something similar to Buddhist tradition. And that specific concept is something that Buddhists strive towards. Because in the tradition of Buddhism, that concept is developed into the idea of nirvana. In Chad Meister's book, entitled Introducing Philosophy of Religion, he defines nirvana as the soteriological goal of Buddhism, as liberation from the wheel of samsara and extinction of all desires, cravings, and suffering. This is accomplished by understanding the Four Noble Truths and practicing the final one. The first, all existence is suffering. The second, all suffering is caused by craving. The third, all suffering can be ended. And the fourth, the way to end suffering and achieve nirvana is by practicing the noble eightfold path of right views, right resolution, right speech, right behavior, right livelihood, right effort, right thoughts, and right concentration. Now, if you don't understand what Chad Meister just said in his book, the footnotes of that, or the TLDR, is that nirvana is the stopping or the quenching of craving, attachment, and the habits of the mind that cause suffering. It is not just accepting what happens, just like how Epictetus argued, but also letting go of the constant need to want, resist, or hold on to things in the first place, especially if they are things that are never guaranteed to be within our control. If you still don't understand it, okay, I like to think of it like this. Would you rather be a thermometer or a thermostat? Now, I'm sure we all know that all thermometers do is measure. All they do is react and reflect the temperature around it. All it does is it responds to its environment. But a thermostat, on the other hand, thermostats, they don't just react, they regulate, they control, they set the standard. So my question is, will you allow yourself to fall victim to circumstances that you cannot control? Instead of focusing on trying to change the universe and looking outward, maybe we should accept the universe and look inward. Maybe instead of trying to question the circumstances, you begin to acknowledge that the circumstances have no hold on you. The second type of peace is receptive peace. Peace doesn't always mean quiet, because sometimes it's more than that. Sometimes peace is acceptance. Now, I want to take some time to bring up this specific verse in Paul's epistle to the Philippians, because I notice that it gets used a lot. This specific verse gets used a lot in, Instagram bios, decorations, posters, phone screens. I want to emphasize this verse not only because, it has relevance to the concept of receptive peace and our overall topic for today, but also because I think it's one of the most common verses you'll see used in, public domains, aside from John 3:16. And, although you can use this verse outside of its context, I think as a result of that, people have forgotten what the context of that verse actually is. So I'll read it right now, okay? And you'll get what I mean when you say people use this verse a lot. Philippians 4, verses 11 to 13 says, I am not saying this because I am in need, for I have learned to be content whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do all this through him who gives me strength. I had to burp. I'm not cutting that out. You get what I mean when I say that's a verse that gets used a lot. Okay? Philippians 4:13. I'm sure we've all heard, the verse, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. That is the context of that verse. And when I was researching for this video, I was like, oh my gosh, this relates so well with our topic for today. And it's a verse that virtually everybody knows. I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. I can do all this through him who gives me strength. Receptive peace is about acceptance. Which brings us to our practical steps for today. There are two. 2 plus 2 is 4. Minus 1, that's 3. Quick maths. Boom. No. 2. Oh my gosh, what I'm trying to say. We have 4 practical steps, okay? 2 for active peace and 2 for receptive peace. Number 1, uproot the weeds. Uproot the weeds. Remember, your mind is a garden. And gardens don't just naturally become as pleasant as they are. If you want to transform the wilderness of your mind into a garden, this requires you to become honest about what is growing in your mind and what doesn't belong there. Weeds, yes, weeds are not always obvious at first. They can look like thoughts or reactions that feel normal because they've been there for a long time. They can be things like constant overthinking or resentment or unhealthy comparisons or impulsive distractions or habits that weaken your focus and your discipline. Uproot them. You have to uproot them. And, uprooting them and the action of uprooting these types of weeds, they take more than just noticing them, okay? If you notice a problem but you don't fix it, then what changes, right? Uprooting these habits, these weeds in your life, it requires you to actively choose to confront them and go into conflict with them instead of allowing them to stay. It means questioning those types of behaviors when they appear. It means interrupting those habits when they try to repeat. It means refusing to let them take root in your life again through habit or neglect. Remember, peace doesn't always mean quiet because sometimes it means conflict. Number 2, plant what you want to grow. Now, after you uproot the weeds, okay? You don't just leave the soil empty. Come on, guys. We're trying to make a good garden here. Have any of you ever played Grow a Garden before? You got to make the garden beautiful. And once you uproot the weeds, then you're going to have to plant something. And you need to fill it with what you actually want to take root. This means being intentional about what you consume and allow into your mind. This means being intentional about what you invest your time into and what you allow to entertain. You're going into your 5th situationship? You're going into your 3rd relationship? Immediately after you broke up with your 2nd one? You're going into another business after your 1st one went bankrupt? Maybe you want to, reflect a little bit and try to figure out what's going on. You have to be intentional. You got to be in there and searching for your purpose, okay? Because your mind doesn't stay neutral for long. And if you don't plant something where you had weeds before, if you don't deliberately plant something else is gonna grow in that place. Come on, guys. We live in a negative world and you're wondering why negativity fosters in your mind. You need to have positive things already in there. Because if you just leave your brain empty, something's gonna take root in there. Doofus. Choose what you feed yourself. Carefully, okay? Don't just interact with every single form of media you see that relates to you. Choose what you feed carefully. Seek out content that strengthens you, your mindset, your discipline. Seek out content that sharpens your thinking, that builds peace instead of agitation, instead of irritation. Surround yourself with things that align with the kind of person that you're trying to become. Number 3, learn to sit with what you can't change. Not everything in life is meant to be fixed or solved immediately. And part of receptive peace begins when you stop treating everything, every single discomfort, every single struggle as something that must be removed. I cannot bear with this. You must release me. No. Sometimes you have to sit with what you cannot change. It means staying present with emotions or situations you can't control. It means that when discomfort shows up, when grief shows up, when frustration shows up, when uncertainty shows up, you don't just fight or escape. No. Sometimes the best thing to do is to hold space for it, to allow it to exist, to learn, to sit with what you cannot change, and to let it pass without letting it control your actions. Learn to sit with what you cannot change. Number 4, give up the deception of control. You cannot, and you will never be able to control everything in life. Try as you might. You can lift the heavens and lift the earth, but you will never be able to control everything in your life. It's always going to be an impossible feat. You're not God. You are not the supreme ruler of the universe. You cannot control everything. And yet, in spite of knowing that fact, we like to pretend that we can, because it gives us a sense of power, of certainty, that we can control our life. But we can't. Some things just give us this illusion of control. And we like to take that bootleg version and allow it to deceive us. And that eventually gets us to disappointment. You get what I'm trying to say? Where does that mindset get us? Where do we end up after that? Remember, peace doesn't always mean quiet, because sometimes it means more than that. Sometimes it means acceptance. And to give up the deception of control is not about being passive. It's about discipline. It's about knowing and having the ability to act when it is needed, and releasing what you cannot control. And with all that being said, that brings us to the end of the 4th episode of Josh's video journal. Again, my name is Josh, and that was Peace. Today's video marks the end of all the videos I have queued up since the start of this channel. I had everything planned out already, from self-discovery up until today's video, Peace. So now we're sailing through uncharted waters. Woo! But in all seriousness, I'm out of topic ideas. So I will be holding a poll soon in order to figure out what topics I should tackle next. I might also be taking a break from posting videos because midterms are coming up and I need to study, and I also don't want to, keep forcing myself to put out all this stuff if it's going to be a detriment to my academics. This was a fun challenge, and I'm not saying I'm stopping in, making content like this. I'm taking a break. So sorry, okay, to all my fans out there. But I will be back, most likely, after a week when, things clear up. If not a week, maybe 2 weeks, but probably just a week. And, what is that? If I'm consistently uploading, around every weekend, like Saturday, Sunday, Monday, that means the next weekend or the next Saturday, Sunday, Monday, I won't be posting anything. Aww, you gonna miss me? I don't care. Blah. Stop. Now, if you do plan on making my life easier, feel free to send special topic requests by following and directly messaging me on Instagram at jnp.radz. Just DM me. You don't even have to say, oh, this is my special topic request. Just DM the word that you want to be the topic, and we'll discuss it. Once more, I feel obligated to tell you as a creator that if you enjoy my content, please support me, support this channel by liking, subscribing, watching the full length of the video. Yeah, that's right. I see you guys who just skipped to the end. Watch the full length of the video. And most importantly of all, comment. Please As a fellow consumer of content, I know that can be pretty annoying to hear, but I have to emphasize that it really does mean a lot to me to receive feedback. Whether that feedback is positive or negative, it doesn't make any difference to me. As a matter of fact, I would even go as far as to say that I would appreciate negative feedback more, because that means that people actually care enough about my content that they feel the need to criticize. Now, of course, the caveat is that the feedback I receive has to have some semblance of constructive criticism, because otherwise it's just hate. Anyways, thank you for watching, and have an awesome, wonderful, amazing, beautiful, bountiful, prosperous, and peaceful day. See what I did there? Have a good one. Bro fist.